Issue 1, the Big Mo.
There's so much frustration and people are hopping around. They're looking for somebody, and I think, quite frankly, that might be the reason we're going up in the polls.
Momentum. Republican presidential candidate Ron Paul has it. The Big Mo. The Libertarian candidate who is running on the Republican label. Dr. Paul is now positioned to win the Iowa caucuses because Iowa Republicans remain dissatisfied, many believe, with Republican contenders, notably Romney and Gingrich. Republican voters see Gingrich as zany and Romney as inconsistent. The Iowa caucuses, less than 3 weeks away, January 3, are closed caucuses, limited only to registered Republicans, i.e. GOP's true believers. That gives Dr. Paul the inside track. Also this, 1, ground support. Politicians in the state say that Paul has the best ground campaign. That means he will turn out his vote. Reminder phone calls, car pickups and returns, helping registration, etc. 2, money. Paul this year has raised $13 million. Only Mitt Romney with $15 million and Rick Perry with $17 million have raised more, marginally. 3, advertising. Tough, close to the bone claims. Here's his ad against Newt Gingrich, branding him with quote-unquote serial hypocrisy.
He's flipped and flopped based on who's paying him.
He's demonstrating himself to be the very essence of the Washington insiders.
It's about serial hypocrisy.
As for Governor Romney, here's the Paul take on him.
Mitt Romney, who was praised by Barack Obama for his Massachusetts health care program.
And here's the knock on Governor Perry from Ron Paul, M.D.
Rick Perry, who applauded Hillary's health care plan and forced young girls in Texas to be injected with an STD vaccine.
Question, does the first place showing in Iowa mean winning the nomination? Pat Buchanan.
For Ron Paul, no, it does not, John. But a first place showing in Iowa for Ron Paul, which is a real possibility, would blow Newt Gingrich's surge right out of the water. Gingrich would then get his first opportunity to win in South Carolina, and even if he won that, he might not get the nomination. This would be dynamite, John, because Ron Paul would get enormous national attention. He would rise in New Hampshire, not to the point where he could beat Romney, but he would wipe out Newt Gingrich there. I think the strategic asset of Mitt Romney right now is Ron Paul, and I'm sure a lot of Romneyites are go, Ron, go.
Eleanor.
Now, I don't think it's Ron Paul's intention, but he is serving the Republican establishment that really wants to slow or stop Newt Gingrich. If Ron Paul wins in Iowa, everybody will say, isn't that nice, but he's not going to be the nominee. There are 2 things you can say about Ron Paul, though. He's consistent and he's principled. And once you understand those principles, you understand how he can be for legalizing marijuana and for not doing everything possible to stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. He believes in virtually no government. He would dismantle the current government by 80%. He is a libertarian.
What about the conservative establishment? We've heard about the Republican establishment. You can speak to that. Look, as a matter of fact, you can reflect on the cover of your magazine, which I'm putting on the screen right now. That's a caricature of Newt Gingrich.
It is.
What are you saying about Newt Gingrich?
Marvin the Martian. We come out very strongly against Newt. We think he's just such a high-risk nominee for not enough reward if he actually would become president from a conservative perspective. Because if there is anyone in this field who might wake up as president and one day just decide he's going to cut some grand bargain with Nancy Pelosi, it is Newt Gingrich. She is just not reliable enough as a candidate or as a potential president.
Why is he so unreliable?
He's just erratic by nature, and he likes to say he's sort of aged out of all that. He's 68 years old, but you just look at the last couple of years. He was against TARP, then he was for it. He was for the Libya no-fly zone, then he was against it. Paul Ryan's Medicare reform was radical social engineering, then it wasn't, and on and on. And just lately, John, he admitted that when he accused Mitt Romney of bankrupting companies in some shameful way, he admitted he shouldn't have said that, and that the Romney aides got inside his head and he reacted in the wrong way. You just cannot have a general election candidate in a high-intensity race against President Obama doing that kind of thing.
What?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's absolutely correct. I think there is a growing sense as people begin to focus in on Newt that there's a kind of unreliability or a kind of erratic quality to
Zany?
Well, zany is a good word. Any name that begins with a Z can't be all bad, as far as I'm concerned. But I really do think that, you know, there was a moment there because Newt was very effective as a debater, and this whole process of selecting a candidate based on how they debate is kind of a bit weird in its first place. But I do think now that the real world is coming in on him, and Ron Paul's escalation in this thing, frankly, is a reflection of that. There is a movement away from Gingrich because they don't think he's quite that reliable, and the conservatives are moving over to Ron Paul.
Where did Paul place in the Iowa straw poll?
Second.
Number two,
Second.
and he
Very
was
strong
very, very
second.
close,
Right behind,
about
150 votes behind Michelle Bachmann.
Michelle Bachmann placed number 1.
Yeah, but it shows Ron Paul this time, John, has an outstanding organization, Energy, Fire, Youth, a lot of people coming in. 4,500 votes in an Iowa straw poll, John, is extraordinary.
Well, it's essentially...
Until 2008, who placed second in the straw poll?
And who placed second? Mitt Romney placed second in the straw poll. And
2008?
Yeah, because
I thought it was Huckabee.
Huckabee was number 1.
Huckabee placed second in the Iowa straw poll.
He was number 1.
He won the Iowa
2008.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's
in the straw poll.
Oh, in the straw poll.
Yeah.
Oh, Romney won the straw poll.
Romney won and Huckabee placed second.
Huckabee is a strong second.
And then Huckabee went on and he won what?
The caucuses.
He won the caucus in Iowa.
Caucuses, yeah.
It's essentially a three-way tie, but I wouldn't discount Michelle Bachmann. She had a very strong performance in the debate over the weekend, and she has an organization. She's on a bus tour visiting all 99 counties. She's another place you can go if you don't want Romney and you're wary of Newt Gingrich. There's a lot good to be said about Newt Gingrich, though. He'd deliver a really interesting campaign about a lot of ideas, like increasing the health budget so we can solve Alzheimer's, space colonies. Some things sound bizarre, but the guy really does think outside the box.
That's for sure.
Romney is a total automaton.
For Romney, the ideal result in Iowa obviously is winning it. But if he can't do that, anyone besides Gingrich winning Iowa is good for Mitt Romney, especially if it's Ron Paul.
Here's a little bit of history. George Bush beat Ronald Reagan in Iowa in 1980.
Right.
Right?
Right.
We saw what happened there.
Well, Reagan came back and beat him by 20 in New Hampshire.
So the win by George Bush in 1980 didn't do anything for him as far as the general election was concerned, as far as winning. Mike Huckabee beat John McCain in Iowa in 2008. Winning in Iowa gives a candidate momentum, a fundraising boost.
McCain didn't contest. He didn't really contest it.
He didn't play. What do you mean he didn't play?
He stayed out. He stayed in New Hampshire.
Huckabee beat Romney. And
Huckabee beat Romney in 2008.
Iowa's high risk and for potentially high reward for Romney. Because if he finishes first, the nomination could be over in a couple weeks. But if he finishes fourth or fifth, he's going to have a significant downdraft in New Hampshire, just the way he did in 2008, and that's a doomsday scenario potentially for him.
What kind of a bellwether is Iowa? Is it reliable or unreliable as far as the nomination is concerned? The answer is it's deeply unreliable.
It's unreliable, that's correct. But there
so
are
what are we getting so excited about?
I was going to ask you that very same question,
But it's enormously important, John.
Well, it's enormously important because here we...
Take Huckabee beating Romney there. Huckabee then goes on to win South Carolina. If Romney had won Iowa, I think Romney would have been the nominee in 2008, John. He just didn't beat him, and then he didn't win New Hampshire, and he didn't win South Carolina.
What do you make of Eleanor now boosting the importance of the gal who's in the race? What do you think of that?
I think she's got a point. I mean,
you think
that
she got
gal
a point,
won the Iowa straw poll, but I think she's starting from too low a base now.
You don't think that's mischief on Eleanor's part, do you?
No, I would bet she gets between 12 and 15%.
You want Bachmann to be the nominee?
No, but I think Bachmann could, while the other guys are fighting among themselves, that she has a shot here. She's very well organized there, and she's another holding position.
And she's
if you don't like the others.
a hugely effective debater. She's become the prosecutor-in-chief in these debates. She's fiery and
about
fearless.
The last one. We've had, what, 16 of these?
You saw her going right after Newt, and you saw Newt showing way too much irritation.
She cut Newt to ribbons in that debate out there in Sioux City. Cut him to ribbons.
You're talking about Saturday night?
Yeah.
I'm talking about Thursday night.
She burned him on the money from Freddie Mac, saying he was influencing the Republican establishment so they could keep up the scam in Washington, D.C. But her facts, she was correct on that, but she has a lot of facts that are wrong that she asserts are right. And so, you know, she's not presidential material, but she can do the mischief you're accusing me of doing.
Let's talk about the polling in Iowa. The current polling in Iowa Idaho today. The most recent poll I've seen is by Rasmussen on December the 13th.
Right.
Okay? Of 750 likely voters, Romney leads by 3 points. Paul is in third place. What do you think of that?
If that happens, okay, that's going to be pretty much the end of the Republican nomination fight, because I think if Romney wins in Iowa, he's going to win in New Hampshire. He's going to have enough momentum to carry him through.
Is that the best diagnostic we have?
750 people.
John,
you can't
Romney
really
wins.
But 3 weeks away.
Hey, John, if Ron Paul wins, Romney wins. If Romney wins, Romney wins. But if Newt wins, Romney's got problems.
Right.
And that Rasmussen poll is interesting, John, because he was the first pollster out in Iowa to pick up the Newt surge. He had Newt popping up to 32 way before anyone else. So maybe he is picking up the diminishment of Newt's momentum.
I'm going to put you in charge of watching the Rasmussen polls, okay? Issue 2.